guys, this is your girl Mika from Live, Love, Life and Travel, and in today's video I'm going to do India versus America and what I think the West, but America specifically, could adopt from India. But not just India, South and Southeast Asia as a whole. So stay tuned. Alright, so in no particular order, one of the things that I find is a benefit to living in South and Southeast Asia is health. It is a lot more affordable to be healthy, I feel like, in these countries. Especially if you are someone who's a vegan, a vegetarian, a fruitarian, or a raw vegan. It is much more affordable to do so. When it comes to fresh fruits and vegetables, and when it comes to fresh produce, like if you're not a vegan or a vegetarian, from fresh chicken, fresh fish, fresh beef, fresh pork, it is a lot more attainable and is a lot more affordable. It's very, very common in South and Southeast Asia, India, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, Cambodia, to have markets where they sell an abundance of fresh fruits and vegetables. Early morning markets to afternoon markets, night markets, especially Thailand is really, really good for this, but also throughout South and Southeast Asia. I feel like in the West, is almost, especially if you have a family and especially if you have kids, it's so much more expensive to be a healthy eater. It's not impossible, it's definitely doable, but depending on how big your family is, you're not going to fill up a bunch of 4 kids' bellies, just buying fruits and vegetables in America because it's so expensive. Or just buying fresh produce, period. Especially in more low-income areas, the grocery stores that you see there, they don't even have a large selection of fresh fruits and vegetables. But here, in South and Southeast Asia, especially Thailand, especially India, it's like there's fresh fruit and vegetable markets everywhere. Even in the middle of the city, you can find them everywhere. And it's quite normal too, like in the culture, it's not unusual to see kids reach for vegetables and reach for fruit as a snack. It's not saying that they don't like chips and candies and cookies just like everyone else, but because eating fresh fruits and vegetables has been kind of a part of their diet for a long time, it's not abnormal to see kids want and is happy to eat fresh fruits and vegetables. Even like going down this field here, you'll see like mango and jackfruit and just different fruits like hanging off the tree, and they probably belong to someone, but sometimes they're just wild bananas and stuff like that. So if you really wanted to, you could just go into the wild and pick it off the tree. A lot of people who want to practice a certain type of diet, again, vegan, vegetarian, fruitarian, raw food vegan, a lot of them will purposely move to places even like Thailand or Indonesia because it's a big community of people who practice that diet there, and again, it's so extremely affordable. But it's not just the fresh fruits and vegetables, not just the diet. I find a lot in South and Southeast Asia, including India, they practice a lot of preventive healthcare. Not, I'm sick now, let me take a pill, let me get on medication, let me take medicine. It's like, what can I do and how can I live to prevent myself from getting sick? Like here in India, they have a huge Ayurvedic community, which is more of a natural healing community. In Thailand, in Indonesia, in Vietnam, they very much practice preventative health, and they do that through diet and they do that through exercise. You see it here in India, but also places like Thailand, Vietnam. You'll see these little gyms, like they're like outdoor gyms. Maybe I can find a video of one so I can show you guys. They're like outdoor gyms because they're trying to promote people to move their bodies, right? You'll see in Vietnam and Thailand, and they'll have Zumba classes and dance classes for the community because they're trying to promote move your body, be healthy, right? And during the lockdown in Pushkar, a lot of the roofs are flat and they're accessible. And so you'll see the elders, the uncles and the aunties doing pacing back and forth on the roof to get their exercise in, because during the lockdown they very much promoted boosting your immune system by getting outside, by being healthy, but also things like lowering your stress, encouraging children to make sure you reach out to your parents, reach out to your loved ones, and make sure they're okay, because you want to lower their stress because that helps their immune system. They just, I feel like in the West is more about you get sick and you take medication, and we very much praise and worship like advanced medicine, and that's great, but we don't focus a lot on preventative health care. It's, you know, depending on what state and city you're living in. And again, it's not just diet and it's not just moving your body, but also mental health care. Here in India, they very much practice meditation and breath work and yoga, and they have a strong connection to spirituality, a higher power, stuff like that, which I think is very important for your mental health, for your stress levels, for your anxiety, for depression, and just for your spiritual health, just for your spirituality. And you see that also a lot in Thailand and places like Indonesia. And again, this is not just the expat community, right? A lot of Thais practice Buddhism and they practice philosophy of Buddhism. Here in India, there's Hinduism, there's Buddhism, there's Islam, there's Christianity, but there's a lot of other religions and spiritualities too. Not just the expats come here to do their spiritual pilgrimages or meditate or see a guru or yoga. A lot of the locals are into this as well. I mean, a lot of them grew up this way, and I'm not saying all of India. Remember, anytime I talk about any country, I am using huge sweeping generalizations, right? Not everyone. And so again, it's not just diet, it's not just moving your body, but it's just the promoting of preventative health care, and also taking account of your mental welfare, right? Your psychological and mental health care as well. I just feel like I haven't seen as much as that going on in America and the US as a whole. I'm not saying every part of the US. I'm pretty sure that it depends where you are in the US, but I feel like America could adopt some of that. More and more preventative health care. Make eating healthy a lot less expensive. Really focus on your mental health, and not in a way where you just sit on TikTok and like whine about your mental health, but what are the steps I can take to lower my stress levels, to lower my anxiety. But the other thing that I think helps with the mental health care, which is the next thing I want to go into, which is family. I feel like, in my opinion, in the West, we have, and it continues to happen where it comes to this idea of dismantling the family, or dismantling the idea of traditional family. And you don't see that a lot in South and Southeast Asia. And again, I'm using huge sweeping generalizations, right? And I feel like in the West, when it comes to the sort of community that's really hell-bent on sort of dismantling the traditional family, they kind of have like this idea of like, we need community and we need a village to raise a child. A lot of the countries have that. They have a strong sense of community, because what I've noticed throughout my travels is like the less big government and a less social safety net, the more community there is. Because a lot of these countries, they don't have welfare, they don't have unemployment, they don't have a bunch of free health clinics you can go to. You know what I mean? Some of them can't just go into an emergency room and get health care and then get their bill sent to them later. It's like, if you don't have the money now, you don't get health care, right? And so a lot of them have to rely on the community for help, so they have a larger sense of community. But they didn't have to dismantle the family structure to have that community. And so I think another thing is, because a lot of these countries have such a strong family safety net and structure, they're very, very close to your family. Like, there's a fucking crow. Family is extremely, extremely important in a lot of these countries. And I think that adds to the psychological, spiritual, mental health care as well. And it's not all rainbows and daisies and rainbows, because you talk to the younger generation in these countries, and sometimes they're like, oh, it sucks because your family's always in your business and they're always trying to tell you what to do. But there is such a strong benefit to it, and I feel like in the West we kind of are actively dismantling that, and I don't know why. I have my theories, but I think it's the wrong thing to do. And so it's the mom and the dad. But it's not just the mom and the dad, it's the uncles and the aunties, and it's the cousins, and a lot of certain cultures within the countries, including India and Thailand and Vietnam and all these other South and Southeast Asian countries, a lot of the family will either all live together or they'll live very closely together, and they all work together, so they have that community, but then they have the community around them. If an uncle has a business, he hires his family members, and then he'll raise enough money to help his brother open another business, you know what I mean? They help each other out. And yeah, family is very, very important, and it's still very traditional. I think a lot of people who live outside, who live in the West, like Westerners or Americans, have this weird belief system that America is like really conservative compared to the rest of the world. The US is actually extremely progressive compared to the rest of the world. Most countries and cultures on the planet still practice very strong traditional beliefs, where it's a mom and a dad in a home, and you get married and you have kids, and this all has to happen at a certain age, and you get a certain career, and there's gender roles and stuff like that. That's still very practiced. And the thing is, I know within the culture, when you're stuck in the culture, if that doesn't really feel right to you, it can be really hard as a woman and as a man to be stuck in a culture that's sort of telling you this is your path and there is no other way. But there's still a benefit to it. And I think what America did, they saw the bad parts of it. They saw the parts where like women felt stuck and they felt like they couldn't, move, they couldn't choose their lives and stuff like that. And they said, okay, we're going to completely destroy everything about traditional family so women can feel like they have freedom. And I think that was the wrong thing to do. We can still have traditional families and structures and see the benefit of that, and then open a door for women, so if they want to remove themselves from that structure, they can. We can give them choices without completely dismantling something that did have a benefit to families, to children, to communities, and to societies. We in the West, I feel like we have a very like throw out the baby with the bathwater mentality, and not just it's a big mosquito. We have a very, and not just like get rid of the bad and keep the good sort of mentality. Yeah, there's not, like, again, I can see the downsides of it from speaking to the youth in these countries. Like for me, being a woman, being of my age, being single, and then traveling, that's unheard of to some of the women, especially the older generations, that I'm doing that. Like there's been many times where I've been asked by an auntie, which is like just an older woman who have kids, whatever. It's like an elder woman. And they'll ask me if I'm married and if I have kids, and when I say no, they're just like, what? Like, what are you doing? Go get married, go get babies, what are you doing? You need a husband. I have a son. You know what I mean? And so I can understand being a woman who doesn't want to follow that tradition. It can be difficult. However, I still admire that family structure, and I still admire the fact that family is so important in a lot of these cultures, especially India, and well, not especially India, but also India. I admire that. There was this one time where I was in Pushkar in Rajasthan, and there was this death in the family. And like America, they'll have like something like a wake, but instead of a day, it lasts like a week or something, and they play lots of music, and it's like a family reunion almost, to mourn the life of the person who passed away. And it was something beautiful to like, the kitchen was downstairs, so I would look down and I would see all the women sitting on the floor, and they're all individually hand making something. Maybe they're hand making bread or dal or rice or something. They're all individually making some sort of dish, and they make these huge meals because all the family is eating. And sometimes they invite other people from the community and from the neighborhood to come join, and they're all sitting there with all their beautiful saris, and they all have their little kids, and are, tending to their kids. And I understand the negative side of that if a woman didn't want to do that and she felt pressure to live that sort of tradition, but there's still something beautiful about it. And I feel we just lack that so much in the States, and it's so sad. Seeing the benefit of having someone at home all the time so that kid can have a parent there to watch out for them and love them and give them affection and give them attention and give them guidance. You know what I mean? Like, we just lack that. And I think that family structure, that family is so important, and the community, which is the other thing, is like there's such a community feel in these countries that America lacks. You know what I mean? I feel like in the States we preach so much about bigger government and more social safety nets and stuff like that. And these countries could use some of that. And that will be in my other video when I say what these countries could take from America. But I feel like the bigger the government, more safety nets, the lack of community, because like if your neighbor is hungry, it's like, well, why should I help? They can just go down to get food stamps. They can just go ask the government for help. Why should I help if they can just ask the government? Where if you don't have that, it's like, if no one's gonna help this person, I'm the only one that can. The community is the only one that can help this person, so we have to come together and help this person, because I will want help when I'm down on my luck, so let me help when I can. So when I'm down on my luck, then the community helps me. And then you have your family as well. Yeah, the lack of community is dismal in the States, and I think that's why there's such a epidemic of loneliness and stuff like that in the States. And so yeah, that's the other thing. So again, family, community, the importance of family. Also, the other thing that which I think that really adds to that sort of a mental and emotional well-being. The other thing, still sticking on family, is elders. There's still a lot of elder respect in these countries. India, Thailand, Vietnam, pretty much every South and Southeast Asian country there is. The only one I haven't been to is the Philippines. And I feel like in the West, again, depending on where you are and your own personal family structure, we don't have respect for our elders. We throw them in old folks' home, especially if you're a woman. It's kind of seen like you're useless now. Your value is useless. Go over there. Nobody wants to see you. Disappear into the dark. When I was growing up, respecting your elders was such a big thing, and like it was no ma'am, yes ma'am. You didn't speak. You didn't interrupt adults when they were speaking. You had a certain decorum. You didn't pop an attitude, stuff like that. And I feel like by the time I was like 14, that just kind of went away. That's when I started seeing teenagers cuss their parents out, yell at their parents, almost run the household themselves. And here, in elders is still a thing, and they respect their elders. Like it's a lot. Like it's the elders and it's the community, because like here in India, like any person who's over a certain age, who's a mom, who has kids, you just call them auntie and uncle. So it's almost that familiar feel, that community feel that you create within the community. They're not your blood relatives, of course, but you call them just, if I go to a restaurant or if I go to a shop or go somewhere and I see an older woman, I want to get her attention, and they say, hey, auntie, and they turn and they respond, or uncle. So it's that community familiar, and a lot of the South and Southeast Asian countries have that. They might not say uncle or auntie, but they have that elder respect. And if you're the same sort of age level, somebody might call you sister or brother. The elders here, and it's because they don't have a large social safety net. A lot of the elders rely on their children and their grandchildren and their extended family to take care of them. And so it is really up to you to make sure your grandparents are okay. You can't, just stick them in a home or whatever. And it's also just a part of the culture. And again, the elders have still a certain level of respect within their community, and you see that amongst the youth. They're not cussing out the parents, they're not cussing out the older people, they're not going, okay, boomer, and all that stuff. Like they realize they have a level of respect for them, and I feel like we lack that so much in the West now, and it's so sad. And I get the idea of like, just because someone's older, you shouldn't have to respect them. Just because they're older, you should earn your respect. But I think respecting your elders and having a certain decorum requires a certain amount of discipline, especially over your own emotions and stuff like that. And I think that helps someone as they get older and as they become an adult. And I think we just completely thrown that away in the West. Again, not everywhere. It depends where you are, and it depends on your own personal family structure, your own personal values. But I think as a whole, we kind of promote that idea that the older you are, kind of the more useless you are in a way. The other thing is nature. Space and nature. Of course, you can find this in the States. I'm not saying that. There's the Midwest, where there's a lot of states. You can go down to Utah or Arizona and stuff like that. So I'm more specifically talking about cities. And it doesn't mean that South and Southeast Asia doesn't have big cities, because they do. They have massive cities. India has Mumbai and Bangalore and New Delhi and Old Delhi. Thailand has Bangkok. Vietnam has Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi. Hanoi is amazing. But I feel like it's easier to find space in South and Southeast Asia is easier to get connected to nature. And probably because there's more space, there's more of it feels like that way anyway. And again, it's not just the expats, a lot of the Indian travelers do it as well. But I also feel like it's promoted more, like being connected to nature, being outdoors, being in open spaces is promoted more in those countries and in those communities. And again, not everywhere, you know, like there's Bangkok and there's Thai people who love Bangkok, will never leave Bangkok, and they're very metro and they're very metropolitan and they're very urban. Same thing in India, there's a lot of people who love Bangalore and Mumbai and Delhi, and that's their life, and they don't ever want to move out of it, and they hate the rural life. But I still feel like it's easier to find communities that promote that. I feel like in the West, like I couldn't talk to any of my peers, like none of my peers would want to like live out here. None of my peers. They'll be like, are there bugs? Can I get hot water? Is there Wi-Fi? You know what I mean? Like they would think about all the things that they might lack living out here. And by the way, I have access to everything here, so I'm not really lacking anything, but I feel like more of my peers will be more reluctant to live out in a more rural area. And I feel like here it's easier to find communities that like promote this, you know what I mean? And for me, again, going back to healthcare and well-being, mental well-being, for me, this is a part of my mental well-being. I don't think I can ever live in a big city ever in my life again, and if I did, it'd be more like Hanoi. But Hanoi actually has a lot of open spaces that has access to nature and parks and stuff like that. And Hanoi doesn't have huge high-rise buildings where they're blocking out all the natural light and sun. So I'm not saying you can't find this in the West, because of course you can, but what I'm saying is like I feel like the community, the environment is easier to find that narrative that promotes getting connected to nature and promotes going outdoors. I said it in a different video, I still get teary-eyed when I see like kids playing outside. Like there was a net over there and they took it down. I don't know if you can even see it, but there was a net over there and the kids would come out here at night and they would play volleyball, and I think they took it down because it's monsoon right now. But they still come out here and they play cricket. You just see kids being kids. You see them running around in the dirt, riding their bikes and playing sports and just being children. And you see this all over Southeast Asia, like kids outside just being kids and getting dirty and all that stuff, and probably getting into mischief. You know, still playing tag, still playing the games that I remember playing. And it's not like it's always because they don't have access. No, a lot of them, they have access to smartphones and video games and television, just like kids in the West. But it's like, it's still natural for them to want to go outside and play with their friends. And I feel like we definitely have lacked that in the West for sure. And first of all, parents are too fucking scared to even let their kids outside, because everybody's scared everybody's gonna get kidnapped, and everyone's just addicted to their smartphones, everybody's addicted to video games. And I feel like in the West, a lot of parents are too scared to put their foot down and say, no, go outside. Like when I was little, it was like, go outside. There is no question, there is no talk back, there is no argument. You go outside, you can't come back in at this time. That is what it is. And so you just did it. And as a kid, you learn how to have an imagination, you learn how to play by yourself, or you learn how to make friends, you learn how to socialize. And I feel like that's just lacking. And again, not all of in America. Again, it really depends where you are, and depends on your own personal family structure and your own personal values. But here I just feel like you just see it so much more. And I guess here it also depends too. Like I'm pretty sure you will see less of any of the things I just mentioned if you live in the big cities. I have not lived in a big city since I've been traveling. I've always lived in smaller towns, smaller beach towns, smaller country towns, rural areas, mountain towns, stuff like that. And maybe if I did that, the same thing in America, like maybe if I would move to smaller towns and stuff like that, I would see the same thing. I never have and never experienced that in America, so I can't say. But it's just like that. I just love that kids still go outside and play here. And again, respect their elders. Going back to healthcare, I also wanted to mention that it's really affordable here. Now, if you are local in these countries and you are a poor family of 5 or 6, then maybe it would still be expensive. But if you are working class, middle class, whatever, it's really affordable. But especially if you are a expat, healthcare is really affordable here. Like, I don't have travel insurance, which is not smart. I'm gonna get travel insurance, but it's like it hasn't really been a big deal in 7 years because like it's so inexpensive. Like it's like surprising. Like you get all these tests done and all this work done and you think, okay, what is this bill gonna look like? And it's like $40 or something. Like it's really inexpensive and it's of quality. Of course, like if you're going to the hospital in the middle of nowhere in a smaller hospital, then there's less access to medical equipments and testings and x-rays and things like that. But in the big cities, the hospitals are modern. They're just like any other hospital in America, and it's so inexpensive. That's why a lot of people come here to do medical tourism. A lot of people go to Thailand and India. India, I think, has a really good reputation for dental work and stuff like that. My friend got a whole full-blown eye surgery, like an invasive eye surgery for less than $2,000, like crazy. So it's really affordable, but that's probably more the lines of the benefits you get to living in these countries as an expat, making foreign dollars. But I'll make a separate video about that. But it was on my list, so I just said it. But it's probably like a separate video about like the benefits of moving out of the States and what you gain. Of course, there's other small little things like bum guns I mentioned in my other video. They're like little hoses that you wash your butt off with. I don't know why America doesn't have those. I think every country should have them. It seems barbaric that they don't, and people are just still washing with dry toilet paper. Like, what the hell? So that was my things that I think that America could learn or adopt or bring back to the States when it comes to culture and society and community. I feel like I'm missing so many things though. But I don't want to make this video too long, so I was just talking about the things that were really on the top of my head, and I think the biggest things that I wish the US had, and one of the reasons why I probably won't be coming back to the US as of now, ever, for permanently. Of course I'll visit, and of course I still love my country, I still want the best for my country, but it just feels like there's so much, because the thing is, like, a lot of really pro-Americans, which is nothing wrong with that. They really don't think they can learn anything from any other country. They think they're the best at the best of anything. And yes, America has so many innovations, and they're so inventive. And I love the natural freedom and liberty that America has. And I think that's something that other countries could adopt. But when in terms of healthcare, the terms of mental health care, there's so much mental health issues and a mental health epidemic going on in the U.S. right now. Depression, the offing yourself has gone up. The loneliness epidemic, the obesity epidemic that probably doesn't help the mental health epidemic. I think a lot of people are hurting in the U.S. at the moment. I think the fact that we don't promote natural ways to help ourselves mentally is an issue. I think there's something, as advanced and as amazing as the US is, there's something wrong and there's something broken. And I think it would help if the US looks to other countries sometimes and goes, hey, we can adopt some of that. Or there are some things we were doing and we got rid of that other countries are still doing and benefiting from. Like, I think India is one of the most fastest developing countries there is right now. It's the future, in my opinion. Places like India, anyway. I know a lot of people have really bad things, bad opinions of India. You would be shocked and amazed if you came here. And every expat that I've ever met from either United States or just the West have said the same thing, and one of the reasons why they left. It's like a mass migration. People always think because of Trump. No, it's not because of that. It's just because the culture changed. And it doesn't fit me right now anymore. And again, I know there's still plenty of amazing places in the US. And I still, again, love my own country. And I'm still very thankful and grateful to be born and raised in America. But I think the things that people praise the US for is, I don't care. Like, I get there's innovation and there's technology and there's science and there's medicine and the best schools and freedom for sure, like freedom of speech and liberty. But honestly, I felt the most free in India that I've felt in a very long time, especially in the last 2 years with what was going on in the global sort of virus thing. But again, I also have to make it really clear that I'm privileged in these countries. Yeah, like there's things that American can learn from other countries. That you shouldn't be so arrogant to think that you figured it all out, because obviously something's wrong. Something's going on. There's something wrong with the culture in the US. And not just the US, the West as a whole, anyway. This wasn't an American bashing video. This is just an enlightened, so people can kind of see why I decided to leave the West, leave the States, and why I've been living abroad for so long. It's been 7 years now. Is because the environment, the culture, the atmosphere, the energy, the values and stuff like that, it just fits me more. It fits my temperament and my personality as of now more. But again, there's things that these countries can also learn from America and learn from the West. And I will make that in a different video. So I'm gonna do that video. So look out for that video, but also look out for another video. I'm gonna do like the top benefits to like moving out of the West, what I've gained from it, the benefits I feel like I've gained from moving out of the West and living overseas in South and Southeast Asia. So look out for that video. But please like, comment, and subscribe, and you have an amazing day from Live, Love, Life, and Travel.